My dogs Jasper and Holly the collie are so well cared for that I often look at them and say, God, I wish I was you. Given lots of cuddles and treats, they spend all day curled up in bed without a care in the world. I mean, for God's sake, look at them. They deserve all the spoiling in the world. And most dogs today are the same, complete freeloaders. Yes, there are guide dogs and canines, but the employment opportunities open to dogs now are nothing like those on offer in medieval Europe. Let's travel back in time to the Middle Ages and find out why dogs were an indicator of social standing, why the church disapproved of them, and just how hard some of them worked. Welcome to Medieval Madness. For the love of dogs. The monk and philosopher Bartholomew Anglicus wrote the Treatise on the Properties of Things around 1240. It was an early type of encyclopedia organised into 19 books. In one entry titled Decane, Anglicus gives us an introduction to the animal known as the dog, stating that, quote, "Nothing is more diligent and intelligent than the hound, for he has more intelligence than other beasts. And hounds know their own names, and love their lords, and defend the houses of their lords, and put themselves wilfully in peril of death for their lords, and run to take prey with their lords, and do not forsake the dead body of their lords." From this, it's quite easy to see how much admiration Anglicus places on the dog, praising its intelligence and attentiveness, showing these qualities by referring to how loyal the animal is to their master. Not only are they conscious of their own name, but they love their owner, work alongside them, and are ready to risk their own life for their master, and even refuse to leave his body if he should die. It's true that especially in the later Middle Ages, dogs were everywhere, but they were not just seen as utilitarian. They were also regarded as status symbols and beloved companions. Most people still use them for protection and shepherding, jobs domesticated dogs had been doing for thousands of years. Whereas hawking and hunting were huge with the wealthy men in society, and their genteel ladies liked to keep them as pets. Crywolf. During the 13th century, Count Robert of Artois, the nephew of French King Louis IX, kept a wolf, quote, "not for hunting or for food or for protection or for spiritual or tactile companionship or for anything else except as a badge of his own awesome nobility." This wolf would have been an extraordinary statement of power, even more so than one of the ferocious guard dogs such as the Mastiff. During the Middle Ages, wolves were the outlaws of the dog world, unlike domesticated animals that were linked to their masters before the law. Wolves lived in the forests around Europe and were seen as a huge threat to livestock and humans. It was true that they were known to appear on the battlefield after the fighting was done to feed on the corpses of horses and men, and they did attack livestock. But actually attacking and eating humans was rare, at least there are few documented cases. By the end of the Middle Ages, due to a combination of deforestation and hunting, they had been systematically exterminated in England. With wolves being one of the most feared of the medieval wild animals, Count Robert built his reputation on the wrongdoings of his pet. The wolf was more than likely found as a whelp during a hunt. When the animal began to kill the livestock of nearby peasants, Count Robert was more than happy to compensate the owner and retain his status as that guy who owned the savage wolf. Top dog. John Caius, a 16th century physician and scholar, described the hierarchy of dogs in his book De Canibus. At the top of his list were the hunting dogs such as the bloodhounds whose great sense of smell compelled them through long lanes, crooked reaches, and weary ways in search of their prey. They were essential in bringing down wild boars and stags. The greyhound, known to the medievals as the running hound, was a particular favourite admired for its incredible swiftness. Although the term running actually referred to dogs that hunted using scent rather than speed, perfect for tracking and catching hares and deer. The term greyhound covered a multitude of breeds from the small Italian sighthound to the huge Irish wolfhound. The greyhound was the favourite dog of royalty, and the French Duke of Berry lamented that the biggest problem with dogs was that they lived not long enough. Truer words were never spoken. The Flemish writer Theodoric of St. Truden obviously loved his dog very much, as he dedicated a poem to his furry friend in the 12th century. The poem begins with a call to other dogs to lament, lament, because Pitiless is dead. The eulogy goes on to praise the dog who was like a small puppy and whose whole life was about giving joy to his master. The 15th century Marquis of Mantua, Ludovico III Gonzaga, had at least 2 dogs, one named Rubino, the other Bellina. When Rubino died, Ludovico was so moved that he buried the dog in a casket and ordered a tombstone for his beloved pet. Many medieval tombstones and brasses portrayed dogs. Women often had grave markers depicting a dog at their feet as a representation of loyalty and devotion to their husbands. The effigy of the dog, or dogs as they were often in pairs, sometimes came complete with collars and little bells. When they were ill, no expense was spared in providing the best veterinary care available. Gaston III, Count of Foix, wrote his hunting manual in the 14th century and set out instructions for the proper care of hounds. Louis I, Duke of Orleans, even prayed for saintly intercession, sending gifts to the shrine of St. Hubert when his hunting pack was struck down by illness. It wasn't just in Europe that dogs were so well loved. The Persian official and physician Ibn al-Mazabun, who lived in Baghdad and seemed to have the right idea, wrote the book on the superiority of dogs over many of those who wear clothes in the 10th century. The treaty begins as though it's a letter to a friend. It opens with a complaint about how the behavior of humans is deteriorating and that they are no longer dependable or trustworthy. Then Al-Mazuban begins to discuss the subject of canines, whom he finds are much better than men in a variety of ways. He uses a collection of several poems and stories that show, quote, the dog's faithfulness, his innate friendliness and staunch defense of his master, also his experience, patience, nobility, wonderful resourcefulness, and his exceptional usefulness. High praise indeed. The stories show how people kept dogs in the Middle East not just for hunting and guarding, but also as pets. He stated that, quote, dogs know their masters well and respond to their own names and know where their homes are. If they are driven away, they come back. If they are starved, they bear patiently, and if they are treated badly, they put up with it. Amongst the dog's virtues is that he comes and faces his master, looking him in the eye, and that he loves his master, and he comes right up close to him. Sometimes the dog even plays with his master and with his master's children by biting them playfully, without hurting them or leaving any mark on them. That's what friends are for. Along with the hunters, Caius also placed gentle lapdogs at the top of the social hierarchy in his treaty on English dogs. Declaring them to be delicate, neat, and pretty, they were above the lowly mongrel but below hunting dogs as they were welcomed inside noble homes. It was noblewomen especially who liked to keep these decorative dogs who not only served as companions and provided comfort and entertainment for their mistresses, but also reinforced the woman's refinement and social rank. Although lapdogs had existed since Roman times, they were now the new thing to have and highly prized for their playful nature and their ability to entertain their owners. Their small size made them perfect for pampering and cuddling. In fact, the smaller the better, puppies being ideal as, quote, the smaller they be, the more pleasure they provoke. These small dogs resembled the pugs that we know and love today, but with longer noses. Their ears might be either droopy or short, and their tails were left long and bushy. There were no extremes of features such as the short legs of a dachshund or the squash characteristics of the flat-faced breeds. However, one of the collaborators of the 16th century Holinshed Chronicle wasn't convinced and accused dogs of being, quote, instruments of folly to play and dally withal, in trifling away the treasure of time to withdraw women's minds from more commendable exercises. Although it could be said that with the often harsh realities of life for the medievals, a dog's playful antics were probably a welcome respite. The Catholic Church wasn't keen on pets either. They thought that keeping them would distract from religious dedication, especially when the medievals got into the habit of bringing them to church. In the 14th century, this caused the Archbishop of York to announce that they, quote, impede the service and hinder the devotion of the nuns. One monastery brought in regulations against dogs and puppies because they, quote, after times trouble the service by their barkings and sometimes tear the church books. It didn't help the cause when one author wrote that a dog would warn his mistress and her lover of the master approaching, and he saw that as a commendable trait. Working dog blues. For those dogs that weren't so well bred and pampered, there was work to be done. Some worked in kitchens, sitting on their owner's head and controlling them to create the perfect dish. Oh, wait, no, sorry, that's Ratatouille. No, in kitchens they used to turn a wheel to rotate the meat spit roasting over the fire, ensuring it was evenly cooked. Others performed acrobatic tricks to delight the crowds and earn money for, quote, their vagabundical masters in the towns and cities. One common sort of dog, an early type of bull terrier, was used to drive livestock from the farm to the butchery. They were cheap to keep as they lived on the offal of the slaughtered animals. In Southampton, a jury complained that butchers were throwing ox heads to their dogs in the street to the annoyance of the king's people and contrary to the honest order of the town. These types of dogs were also used for bull and bear baiting, where they would wear spiked metal collars and be forced to fight the much larger animals. In Scotland, anyone who killed one of the large, well-trained househounds was forced to stand in their place for the next year. Mastiffs were the most valuable protection dogs, described by Caius as vast, huge, stubborn, owly, and eager, capable of striking fear and terror with their big barking. They were used to secure London Bridge and often shut up to sleep during the daytime so that they would be more alert at night. Other laws in place banned people without a landed income from keeping hunting dogs, as they could use the hounds to help them poach game from the royal forests, or worse, use hunting parties as a way to cover up rebellious intrigues. Any bothersome dogs were dealt with quickly and destroyed. Some rogue mongrels attacked humans too, and there are many remedies in recipe books as a testament to this. The Middle Ages were a time when humans heavily relied on animals for most things. Agriculture, warfare, and transport all needed their help. It's often said that the character of a person can be judged by how they treat any animal. It's not hard to see that many medievals loved their dogs just as we do today. Perhaps surviving life as a dog in the Middle Ages would have been exactly as it is now, where the well-being, comfort, and love of an animal very much depends on the character of the human owner that they end up with. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Medieval Madness. Give your dog a pat on the head from me, and please do subscribe if you enjoyed this video, as we do release new ones every Friday. Until next time, hope everyone has an amazing week. Cheers!